7 to talk about. Let's keep the show moving, please.
You're a star of the show, though.
Agreed.
People love seeing you like that.
Warriors and Rockets. Golden State announced they will be without Kevin Durant for the rest of the series as he recovers from a right calf strain. He could return for the Western Conference Finals if the Warriors advance. They got to win 1 of 2 against Houston to do that. Here's Steve Kerr looking on the bright side.
Yeah, I think it's good news. Calf strain. He's had them before. He's responded well, and obviously we're disappointed he won't be able to play, in this series. But if we're able to win the series and move on, it looks good for his return, in the not too distant future. It's the playoffs. It's the ultimate test, and we're in a great spot. We're up 3-2, and we got championship rings on our fingers and a lot of experience and a lot of confidence that comes from that. So let's go out there and let it rip.
All right, see, I'll start with you. Who's got the edge in this series with Kevin Durant not in the lineup?
Well, this is the thing. The series it could be 2 games, but it could be over with tonight. I mean, the Warriors do have the type of firepower, and we know that they're going to come out there with a sense of pride because just look at what they have to gain. All the players that are left, especially the ones that are there from their first championship, the 4, Iguodala, Steph, Clay, and Draymond, each of them collectively. Imagine how they would feel closing this out with Durant, allowing Durant to be off to the side and get healthy for the Western Conference Final. So they're motivated to be able to do this without Durant, just like we saw them, a frenzy in that 4th quarter trying to get that win with Durant being out of the lineup in game number 5.
And see, when you say, obviously it could be 2 games, but it could get closed out tonight. You believe if it gets to a game 7, then the Rockets have the edge.
Yes.
That if it's 3-3 and there's no Durant, the Rockets have the edge. But the Warriors have the edge overall because they obviously could end the thing tonight, which is the point you're making.
Yeah, and their margin of error for Houston. They can't afford 2 bad quarters in tonight's game. Because I believe Steph's going to get enough shot attempts, and I believe to Steve Kerr, they will create enough offense that they're going to play at a more up-tempo than they typically play at. They're not going to allow Houston to set up their half-court defense to be able to shut down and trap Clay or trap Steph and get the ball out of their hands. So it's to their advantage to get the ball off the glass or force turnovers to be able to get a shot up as quick as possible. Now, they're passing, and it could be a huge plus, or it's the way that leads to victory. I expect them to turn the ball over more because they're going to be trying to pass the ball more the way they play when Durant's typically out of the line.
Right. One of the reasons their turnovers had been down this postseason to a degree is because they hadn't been playing traditional Warrior basketball.
They've been playing Kevin Durant basketball.
It's Kevin Durant isolation basketball. But I want to talk about Steph Curry for a moment here because I know we're going to get into how big this weekend can be for James Harden. This is going to be a really big moment for the 2-time MVP and the only unanimous MVP ever. Because people have, over the last few years, I think unfairly questioned how important Steph is. And people this postseason, I think fairly, have questioned how effective Steph has been this postseason run. If Steph comes out tonight with a 2015 or 2016 Stephen Curry performance, 8 threes, 38 points, unguardable, pulling up from 29, and ends this Rockets season in Houston, or ends this Rockets season on Sunday in Oracle, preventing that game from being the last day at Oracle, this, for a guy who's won championships, but doesn't have a finals MVP, for a guy who's won a regular season, 2 of them MVP, but has never been considered the best player alive, this could be as big of a moment as he's eligible for in the 2nd round of the playoffs. Because now, just like there's always the yeah, but with Durant, even with his finals MVPs, because Steph's been on the court, that's now been removed. And Steph, along with Draymond, saved them in Game 5. They were on pace to losing that game. I know it was tied when KD got hurt, but they were falling apart. And then part of that because Steph wasn't playing well. Steph got it together and was excellent in that fourth quarter. Once KD went out, he scored 16 points. That's what the Rockets have to be worried about. A vintage Splash Brother performance tonight where the Toyota Center in Houston doesn't get energized, the Rockets' threes aren't falling, and the Warriors have control from the very beginning.
How unstoppable is this Warriors team if we see the pre-Kevin Durant team show up?
Well, this is the thing. They can be as good as that team because we know that they understand it. But how many minutes can Iguodala play? Because he can't be back to that level. You can't get those years back. Draymond, I believe that he could match the level. He shot the ball with more confidence in the last few games, knocks down the big three in game number 5, the diagonal three, after receiving the technical. And you know what Steph and Clay are capable of doing. But they don't have the bench. So can they sustain this throughout those 4 quarters in Houston in tonight's game? So I believe there will be some moments. And I believe that even Houston, they'll get off to an early lead. But Golden State will make runs at them. This is a different version. I think that with Steph, they're going to need Steph at his absolute best and Clay. Neither one of them can afford
a bad night.
Yes.
In either of these games.
Yes.
They have to be excellent, both of them, in both of these games. 2 quick notes before we move on. While this is not, because of the lack of depth, because of the miles on Livingston and Iggy, this is not the same Splash Brother Warriors of 15-16. But the team we see out there tonight is the same Warriors team we are going to see moving forward. And that is what is so interesting. People need to understand, even if Kevin Durant leaves, assuming he does leave, and Boogie leaves as well, they don't have any cap space. Steph, Clay, Draymond, Iggy, Livingston, all under contract next year except for Clay. Assuming they bring him back, they are already over the cap with 5 guys. So the lack of depth, the lack of having a real bench, that's what the Warriors are going to be faced with next season, assuming they re-sign Clay. And the last point before we move on, if the Rockets are able to pull this off, there is no asterisk attached to it. And Golden State fans don't want there to be asterisks attached to it. They've won 3 titles in this era. Every single one of those titles has come with their biggest challenge, their best opponent, being without either their best or their second best player. Their first title, the Cavs went into the finals with no Kevin Love. They then lost Kyrie in Game 1. The Cavs were up 2-1 in that series. The Warriors came back when it was LeBron and Dellavedova and company. Their second title, their biggest challenge was the Spurs. They were down 23 points in Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. Kawhi gets maimed by Zaza. They go on to sweep that series. Their third title, their biggest challenge, their only challenge was these Houston Rockets. The Rockets go up 3-2 in that series. Chris Paul goes out, their second best player. The Warriors go on to win Game 6 and 7. Those aren't asterisk titles. All titles count.
Right.
But it's got to work both ways. If Houston can do this, there's no but Kevin Durant wasn't out there.
All right, let's talk about the Rockets and specifically James Harden. Tremendous regular season last year. But how much of his legacy is on the line with this series right now?
I think this series, because if we talked about it before, 4 times they had to go through Golden State as far as facing them in the playoffs. And Harden's got all the honors you want to have during the regular season. He's been an MVP, multiple All-Star, multiple times led the NBA in scoring. But that's just not enough because there's 2 legacies in pro sports. It's what you do during the regular season, and the greatest of the greats, their career is mirrored by some type of championship and or great runs in the playoff. Myself, Charles Barkley, man, there's a lot of great players that played this game for a long time.
What list are y'all on?
Man, that list you don't want to be on. Greatest athletes to ever not win a championship. And you don't want to be on that, Harden. I'm telling you, regardless of how many scoring championships you got, I don't care about your efficiency. I don't care nothing about, oh, they invented the step back for you. You don't want that. You do not want to be on that list. And people don't care that he played in an era with Steph and KD and LeBron. There wasn't a whole bunch of championships available.
Right. Nobody gives what Malone, Stockton, Ewing, Reggie Miller, any of these Jordan. It's no.
Right.
They just never won a title. It's not going to be about how well Harden plays. It will be as far as like the Rockets need to play well. But if Harden plays great and they lose, no one's going to care. Harden in the regular season of his career with the Rockets is 29, 6, and 8. He's so bad in the playoffs that turns into 28, 6, and 7. And so it's just that he is not, as the best player on a team, even been to a finals, much less won a championship. It's the only thing missing from his resume. Harden's career is going to go, memory-wise, one of two ways. The Dirk Nowitzki path, a guy who was considered an underachiever, won an MVP, but nobody cared till he won that title. Or, unfortunately, the Elgin Baylor path, which is, I believe, the most underrated player in league history. Harden averaged 36 a game this year. Elgin averaged 38, but he never won a title, so he gets forgotten.